All right, everybody, welcome back to day 8 of 30 Days to Sell Cars.
Day 8 already.
That's right. We're going to do a deep dive today on converting leads to appointments. And, we're talking about this upgrade event you're putting on.
Right.
This is where the rubber meets the road.
Right.
This is where we're going to make some money, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So you've sparked interest. You've gotten people. You've warmed them up.
You've got leads coming in the door.
Now we got to get them to actually come into the dealership.
Yeah, you got to get them to actually show up. That's the big hurdle.
So there's two big ways that we can go about this.
Okay.
We can talk about using AI, and we can talk about using your BDC or your sales team.
Right. And I think deciding between the two really depends on your dealership. What are you comfortable with?
Yeah.
How tech savvy are you? And what does your team look like? Do you have the manpower to really get out there and reach out to all these leads?
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Right. And so, AI, it's really powerful. These tools like carleadsondemand.com, they can automate a lot of this follow-up for you.
Okay.
You think about like personalized text messages, personalized voicemails to, hundreds of leads.
Wow.
While your team is busy doing other things.
Right.
Yeah.
That frees them up to do other things.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what does that look like? Like if you were to use one of these tools, what kind of stuff would you be sending out?
Well, so they actually give you some really good templates that you can use.
Okay.
And they can be customized. You can put in your dealership's info. You can put in your specific offer, like the $500 upgrade bonus that we've been talking about.
Right.
And I've actually got some sample scripts here that they provide both for text and voice messages.
Okay, let's hear them.
All right. So for a text message, you could say something like, "Hey, name, it's dealership name. Don't forget about our huge upgrade event going on now. You could get a $500 bonus towards a new car. Reply upgrade for details."
Okay, short, sweet, to the point.
Exactly. And then for a voicemail, you could say, "Hi, name. This is your name from dealership name calling to remind you about our incredible upgrade event happening right now. We're offering a $500 bonus towards a new car. Give me a call back at phone number to learn more and schedule your appointment. We look forward to hearing from you."
Okay, I like that. That's great.
Yeah. So you see these scripts are really good starting points.
Yeah.
They're benefit driven. They have a clear call to action.
Right.
You can really tailor them to your dealership.
So that's all AI driven. But
Well-
what about, you said earlier, the human touch.
Yeah.
How does that play into this?
Absolutely. So while AI is great, it can't do everything.
Right.
Sometimes you really need that human touch,
Yeah.
or a real person talking to another person.
Okay.
And that's where your BDC or your sales team comes in. They can make these calls, they can build rapport,
Right.
they can answer questions, and really connect with those leads on a personal level.
Yeah, I could see that being really valuable for, like, high value leads.
Exactly. Someone who's, really interested in a specific car, or, has a trade-in they want to talk about.
Or maybe they have a question that isn't in the script.
Right, exactly.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So we got these two options, AI or the human touch,
Right.
and it sounds like it's not necessarily one or the other.
No, not at all.
It could be both.
You can combine them. And that's really the best of both worlds.
Okay.
So, you can have the AI doing the initial outreach,
Yeah.
Sending out those messages, getting people interested. And then
Yeah.
as those leads start to, respond, they click on a link or they reply to a message.
Right.
Then you can have your BDC or your sales team jump in and really, take it from there.
Yeah, that's smart because then you're not wasting your salespeople's time.
Exactly. You're only focusing on the leads that are actually engaged.
Right, exactly.
And one thing to keep in mind is regardless of whether you're using AI or your team, you want to be consistent with your messaging.
Okay.
Make sure everyone's on the same page, everyone's using the same scripts, the same talking points.
Right, consistency is key.
Exactly. And the other thing to think about is lead prioritization.
Okay.
Not all leads are created equal.
Right, some are hotter than others.
Exactly. So you want to focus your efforts on the leads that are most likely to convert.
So who are those leads? Who should we be going after first?
So I would say, start with the people who have already shown interest.
Okay.
They clicked on your email, they responded to a text message.
Right.
Those are the people who are raising their hand saying, "Hey, I'm interested. Tell me more."
Right, yeah, like they're already halfway there.
Exactly.
Right
And then
on.
also, don't forget about your past customers.
Right.
These are people who already know, and trust you.
Right. They've done business with you before.
Exactly. So they're much more likely to be receptive to your message.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So those are the hot leads that we go after first.
Right.
What about the people who haven't responded at all? Are we just going to give up on them?
No, no, not necessarily. I mean,
Mhm.
sometimes people are just busy. They might have missed your message. So
Right.
it's okay to follow up, maybe send a reminder text or,
Okay.
highlight a new benefit.
Right.
But you don't want to be too pushy.
Right. You don't want to bombard them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You want to stay top of mind, but you don't want to annoy them.
Right. Yeah. That's a good point.
And another important thing is to make sure you're tracking everything.
Sure.
Whether you're using AI or doing it manually, you need to know who you've contacted when you contacted them
Right.
and what the outcome was.
So we need to keep good records.
Exactly.
Okay. How do we do?
So if you're using AI, these tools usually have dashboards
Okay.
that show you all that information. But if you're doing it manually, you need to make sure your team is logging everything in your CRM.
Right. So that everyone's on the same page.
Exactly. You don't want to have, two people calling the same lead at the same time.
Right. Yeah. That would be bad.
Yeah. Or, missing a follow-up opportunity.
Right.
So tracking is key.
Okay. So we've talked about AI. Right. We've talked about the human touch.
Right.
We've talked about consistency lead, prioritization tracking. Sounds like there's a lot to think about here.
There is, but it's all important.
Right.
If you want to maximize your appointment bookings, you need to have a solid follow-up strategy.
Right.
And as you're going through this process, and you're gathering data,
Yeah.
think about how you can use that data to further refine your strategy.
Okay.
Maybe you notice that a lot of people are asking the same question.
Right.
Well, then you can, address that question proactively in your next communication.
Oh.
Or maybe you see that a certain type of lead is more likely to convert. Well, then you can, focus your efforts on those leads.
So we're always analyzing. We're always adapting.
Exactly. This is an ongoing process.
Right. Constantly improving.
Exactly.
Okay. So there you have it. 2 paths to convert leads into appointments: AI-powered efficiency or the personalized approach of your sales team.
And don't be afraid to combine the two.
Right. The best of both worlds.
Exactly.
The key is to choose the strategy that aligns best with your dealership's resources and goals, and then execute it with consistency and precision.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
All right, so go out there and make day 8 a success. I'll see you back here tomorrow for day 9.
See you then.
All right, bye, everybody.
Bye.